the place next to my mother's up here is how I wound up getting up here, because I had been coming up here since '66 because somebody she worked with in the dress factory, her husband went cuckoo, and they were bungalows.
Right.
That's what they were called. And she wanted to get out from under it, and she got it for a cheap price, and she bought it, and we'd go on weekends and, fix it up and whatever. And that started like when I was around 14. And then we still lived in Brooklyn for a long time.
Right.
She left in 74 to move up here, and I left in 77 because the house next door, for when it came up for sale, I don't know if my grandfather, somebody helped me get, or I had a couple of put down. At that time, I didn't have a job because I left my delivering furniture for 6 years in 76 because I don't know if you ever heard what a Pownell cyst is. So I went out on compensation in 76, and I never worked again but tattooing.
Right.
Full, that was it.
So when you were tattooing here, was it legal?
No. What was legal?
Tattooing.
In Brooklyn?
No, here.
Oh, yeah.
And who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third.
Old timers said to me, when you're looking to open up a place, you go to the police station, you ask if there's any bans or rules on the books. I went to the police station, they ain't even the word tattoo in this whole encyclopedia.
Yeah.
So I went, okay, well, I'm just telling you, I'm opening right next to McDonald's on Lower Main Street. You're welcome to come in anytime. I had the guy make me a petition, split the store in half, so I have a back, where I work, and a little room in the front where I displayed my stuff. That's that picture that I'm standing there, Ronnie's tattooing. That's the shop. And that front page picture is the front of the shop. And I opened that in January 14th, in the middle of the winter, in the middle of a snowstorm. I was out there. You're not supposed to paint when it's not 40 degrees or above. It was 25 degrees. And I couldn't wait to paint the front of the place black and red like that, And I had a nice guy, this old-timer auto sign painter, paint me that big sign, double-sided, for like $40. Like,
yeah.
He felt bad, like, I was just starting out, and he liked me. And I always try to be nice to people, even if I never,
yeah.
and not come off like a shithead, because I ain't seen where that got you. It wasn't fun.
I was just curious because I know that there were other places where there was a ban.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I wasn't sure at the time if PA or not.
There's a lot of... Jersey always was big on, like, for years they had that blue law where you couldn't open a business on a Sunday.
Right.
But they abolished that, like, very, very years. But I'll tell you, in Montclair, New Jersey, Powerhouse, where Eddie Peralta is, there used to be a girl and her husband there. I forget what her name was. She had the place, like, forever. Well, the stick with that was they could open in that town, but they only grandfathered her to open up that shop. No other shops could open. What happened was, her and the husband split up. She winds up selling the place back in 2010, something like that, to Eddie Peralta and Crooked Ken. Went partners on that shop.
Okay. I know Crooked Ken.
They own that shop.
Yeah.
That's their shop. And Eddie owns a shop in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
In Old San Juan. And Eddie is a collector of memorabilia, which I've sold him a lot of things.
Well,
that
I want to get into that too, because when
there's not much left.
In '99, when they
Yeah.
did the that panel.
Oh yeah.
He was very good friends with Tony and Freddie, and he came around and visited us all, took pictures. Many of them pictures are in the book. Ronnie, tell us a little bit of stuff. Ronnie would like to see things back into those days. Ronnie resists change. Ronnie Dell Aquila.
Well, thank you.
They give you credit on providing pictures and stuff to the McCabe book and some other stuff.
But you see, most of those, not all of them, but a lot of them came out of Coney Island Freddie's scrapbook. Those were from 59 and 60 that were taken on old Polaroids. that were like yay big and had like a rigid edge to them. When he was here with me from 91 to 93, I had him here 3 days a week because at the time he had nothing else going. He had to make a 2-hour trip because he still lived in Jersey. And I had a guy at the time that I tattooed that used to come and hang that worked in a photo lab in Jersey. I gave him the photos and he printed them for me.
Okay.
And that's how I got the collection I got. And then some of them were taken even out of books that other ones published that he wound up shooting and making me. At one point, he made me so many 5x7s. I had 20 of them, I think. We once walked into the Philly convention on a Sunday afternoon. Paid to get in the door was me, my son, and my friend Al up there. And I had 20 sets of them to sell. And there was 20 for $100.
Okay.
The copies. Within maybe 2.5, 3 hours, I sold
Oh, wow.
$700 or $800
Okay.
worth of these photos. Where I almost, I think I was out of them at
Right.
that point. But like everything else, not too long after that, that ended. And, you know, another one that contributed to some of those photos was Fast Freddie Faz, who used to be in Columbus, Georgia. He's originally from Michigan, and that's where he's from, but he wound up down there. And my good friend Tony Lucas, that's one of the original, they talk about underground tattooers in New York City. He was one of the first ones in Queens that tattooed underground.
Okay.
And in that book that Clayton made, and he interviewed a guy named Al Clark, who Tony helped. Al didn't even bother to mention him, which I thought was pretty screwed up. He's in Columbus. He doesn't tattoo anymore, but he runs a tattoo shop as the front guy for a friend of his. And this is a guy you should talk to. He started on 48th and 8 with Tony Dianessa. You know, he was on his own. He was 15 and 16. And that's where he learned. And Tony just turned 81 in June. And, you know.
I know that you said during that, you know, symposium or whatever, it was pretty much an honor for you to be there amongst all those guys.
I was like starstruck, like overwhelmed. Like, is this really happening? Like,
Yeah.
are you guys serious? Like to have me here? I mean, you know. But they all knew that I respected them all. And I always treated them with respect and
Right.
never came off shitty or got into an argument, you know, and nothing. You know.
So how did it turn out that you wound up doing the sit down that was done a couple years back with you and Richie?
Fi incorporated that. I think Fi and Richie Montgomery, I'm pretty sure, orchestrated. Oh, no, it could have been, I think it was Fi and Schwagged went in that direction, that we should have these guys that they're all here and alive and were guys that tattooed underground together and have a sit down. Because Schwager was there also.
Right.
And yeah, I think it was Schwager and Richie that put it together, and then Richie Montgomery had it. That was his shop. And his wife set up that big table for us and also had a catered, you know,
Right.
stuff in the back for us to snap.
It's my
on and
understanding
stuff.
that was a 4 or 5 hour session that got
Oh,
chopped
yeah,
down pretty,
yeah.
what, to an hour?
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of things in that were.
Not for public. When the band was going on, did you got popped once or twice, right?
Once I got one.
And then it wound up being like a
Me and this guy, Carl Mann, in January of 76, I think it was. Yeah, we both worked. He worked for the phone company as a janitor or something, and he tattooed like in a little bit downtown Brooklyn, not in such a great area, out of his apartment. And Carl was he was working at one time with an electric shaver that he made into a tattoo machine.
oh wow.
So at the time when I had them Zeiss machines, Billy says to me, "This guy's working with shit." He goes, "Do you want to unload any of those?" And I never sold a machine to anybody that wasn't already tattooing, or that, you know, because I've had calls when I was on the balls of my ass Like, I want to buy a gun. I go, gun to sporting goods stores 2 blocks over. No, tattoo gun. I want. It's a tattoo machine, and I don't sell machines. When I could have used that $100 to bring home, but I never did.
Right.
Only if somebody was already into it, and I knew who was asking me, I respected, I do it. Others that I thought were shitheads, I go like, well, good, let them ask somebody else because I ain't selling them shit.
Right.
But, so Carl and me, we went partners on this little store. And at the time, social clubs, the windows were green and you had to leave a foot from the top. That was kind of the way. So we rented this little store under an elevator train on McDonald Avenue. Nobody bothered you, right? And we go there every night at 7 o'clock. And we started to develop where there was 4 or 5 people waiting for us. And Carl would do so many because he had a little following. And I do so many. And we split the rent. And what he made, I made. We kept. And, that lasted for a good long time. Now, in the midst of this, Coney Island Freddie's second wife's mother lived 3 blocks over, and then Freddie got wind that we were there, and he stopped in. I think he was working for a CETA program at the Coney Island Aquarium at the time as a carpenter. We said, what are you doing? You doing any tattooing? And me and Carl we were making some money. We went, oh, what do you think? Want to take him in a few days a week? You see, Freddie had to be Freddie and bring his own chair, bring his box of shit, and bring it home every time. So now we parked, double parked. The police car would pass at 7. They passed at 11. We were hanging out smoking cigarettes and short sleeve. Never even asked us what we're doing there. To raid a storefront, you needed a police captain and a uniformed cop. And you needed a letter from a complaint and a phone call. So whichever person saw that, they're getting real comfortable now. They got a third guy there. See, the whole law, you can have all of this. When you're breaking that ordinance or code is when the needle hits the skin.
Right, so you could have a shop.
You could
just
have a
couldn't do
shop.
tattoos.
You could not. They put it into only administrated by a doctor,
Right.
which was as
Yeah.
silly could be. The police captain next door to us was this catering place that had all these milk crates. He stood on a milk crate, and I was the first guy when you looked in the window that was tattooing. So he observed me with the needle on the skin. And then a friend of ours that used to just open the door because they gave a shit. As he walked in, he went right over to me and went, "That's illegal. You got to stop it." I went, "No, it's not. It's a health code." Just like that. And he went, "Put down the machine." Now, I was doing an eagle with a snake, and where the yellow is in the snake's, part of the inner wings, I wanted to put some brown to be a little bit more modern. And otherwise, with the yellow, I would have been done. The fucking machine would have been on it. Well, put down the machine, then called, put down, and they came, the captain, the uniform, and 6 narcotics cops. So they're looking around the whole place. At the time, I was selling Dr. Brown soda, and I was selling cigarettes by the pack.
Said nothing about that.
Right, because the store and the bodega on the corner was not where you wanted to go, and if I could keep them inside of the place, it was a better thing.
Right.
Plus, they'd wait. Didn't say a word about it. So they went, all right, they take my machine and the stencil, and they take us to the precinct. Not handcuffed or nothing, in 2 separate cars.
On the next episode,
They issue us a summons to appear 646 Broadway, which is the same court as spitting on the subway, smoking on the subway. It's a misdemeanor bullshit court.
thanks for watching.